Welcome back to another episode of The Ether, where we disrupt your thinking, challenge the status quo, and illuminate the path to easier business success. I'm your host, Brandon Gano, joined by my co-host, Sean Delaney, the creator, founder, and mastermind behind What If, where we exist to demonstrate the acceleration, ease, and joy that comes from running a truly harmonious business. Let's dive in to another episode and grow your business. Yo, Sean, we are going to grow some businesses. Yes, get out of the smoke. Take away the ether. Get out of here.
With joy.
With joy.
With
joy,
ease. Stuck out at me today. Mm-hmm. Been joyful lately.
Okay. Enough garbage for us. Hey, we got an exciting day today, first of all. So we're going to keep this episode nice and short for those of you not watching live, watching the recording. Thanks, first of all, for those of you watching live. We love you. If you have questions, we're here. Put them in the comments and we will get them potentially answered on this show. But we have an interesting day. We always go live recording this episode right before our private inner circle business accelerator. And we have an exciting room lined up today. So we're going to keep this one real tight because we got a guest coming on. We got to do a little pre-chit chat, get some things lined up. Let me just say, if you're not in that room, you should be in that room because she's going to blow your minds around marketing today. But we're not here to talk about that on this episode. We're here to talk about the rise of AI and the fall of your business. So basically,
sounds cool.
Is AI just going to put us all out of business? Is that what we're talking about?
I mean, I've seen people running through the streets screaming that that's exactly what's happening. Are you still setting us up riffing and jamming on this, or are you asking me a question? Why don't you just ask me the question you want to ask me? What are we doing right now? I was about to start running and ripping and jamming. Yes, it's the rise and fall.
So this is the conversation, right? And AI is not new at this point. It's been here. It's been at least ChatGPT, like the new age AI, if you will, has been on the scene for a year and a half, over a year for sure at this point. And the big discussion has always been, is this going to put me out of business? Is this going to affect my business? How will this impact me? And then on the flip side of that conversation, which is I'm more concerned about, and I know you are too, is how am I going to use AI to get rich quick and make $1 bajillion and make my life easier in business? They're both wrong. We're going to shoot somewhere in the middle, not to be safe, but to totally disrupt the way you think about it. And that is really the frame for today's conversation, Sean.
Anytime something comes out that is so beyond what had been before, like new technologies, if they're advanced enough, it seems like magic, which for anybody who knows me well is not surprised that I think these things are magic. I mean, I have no idea. It lights up. You'll find me with a lighter trying to set it on fire. Well, the light comes out of it. How else does it work? I don't understand. I'm a very simple man, but these things seem like magic. The wheel, pretty damn good. Like we're still using them. When we discovered the wheel, we didn't know that they'd be used on the bottom of planes so you could land. That's insane. In watches, so we can accurately tell the time. Chart the passage of time with wheels. We get a lot out of wheels. Loving wheels over here. Electricity, same thing. Imagine, we know this enough. But now, so AI, is this it? Is this the next one? It certainly seems that way because it seems like a little bit of magic to people, right? If you know anybody in your life that goes, I don't even know what you're talking about, you might be on the magic. If you have one person who's very smart saying to you, this is the one thing I've waited for my entire life. It's going to change everything for the better. While this person is screaming as they run down the street, this is the end of everything. It's the end of my business. It's the end of humanity itself. Lawyers are going away. We have these extremes. We must be dealing in a world with magic. And who wins in those situations? Brandon is right. The person that stops for a second and says, hold on a second. Are we talking about something that has changed the paradigm of as life as we know it? Alien beings have come down and said, so sorry. Turns out you were a science experiment for my kid. And we kind of forgot you were here. Honestly, I mean, we got a lot going on, you can imagine, as interdimensional beings. And well, so we got to clean this up. It's starting to stink. And what? We're just some petri dish for some intergalactic being that lives for 1 million years? Yeah. Sorry, but we're not going to throw it out or anything. Like, you guys could just keep doing what you're doing. Just wanted to let you know. Sorry if we left a few things behind, like the pyramids. And then we go batshit crazy because the entire model of the universe, it's not what we're talking about here. We're not. We're talking about a tool. So just like if the world's greatest saw got thrown at us, we wouldn't run down the street and say, carpentry is dead. No. I am still a person who is not skilled at carpentry. So give me the world's greatest saw, and I'm going to use it ham-handedly and not so great. But carpenters will still be needed. We just have a new tool. Is it more like that? I think it's more like that. But there's no reason to not use it if it's something that makes carpentry more accessible to all of us. Carpenters still have their place, but we then need to lean into that and say, new access has been given to me. I can now do something I could not do before, so I should lean into it and enough to see what's the 20% of me knowing this and utilizing it so I get 80% of the lift. I'm not going to turn around and say, I've discovered AI and I see the light. Now my company's an AI company. You've taken your value proposition and reduced it to a tool that everyone's still trying to figure out, and we're not sure if it's magic, the end of the world, or just a widget. So hold on a second. That's ridiculous. We're not going to do that. We're going to say, how do I, with the same customer segmentations and the same value propositions, just use this to grease the skids to either solve problems faster, cheaper, better, or take away some of the customer churn that I have that's reducing my profits? Or how do I make the support processes around my value chain better for me so I return more of a profit because I'm reducing expenses? Maybe that.
Yeah, I always like to ask complex questions, and I think I just made that up. But by that, I mean
Maybe I've never asked one before.
I've never asked one of these complex
I'm
questions.
going to ask it now, and I like it so much, I'm going to claim that space. Good for you.
Yes. Okay. So I am now a complex question asker, to use your example. So here's a version of a
and
complex
here's what I always do.
This is what I always do. It's a two-part question that's very, very hard to answer, and it makes you think and stretch outside of your current means. So in the realm of AI, an example would be a very bad example, but a generic one would be, how can I 2x my profit and work half as much? That would be a complex question, because some would say, how can I grow my company? How can I 2x my profit? And there would be very easy paths to get there. And some people would argue. You could also ask the separate question, how can I work half as much? And you could have two totally different sets of activities to get there, or strategies. But I think asking the complex questions, the one that I always ask, those ones,
going forward,
always doing it.
You ask complex questions. I always do that.
Yes.
Now
you ask a complex question, and it forces you to not ignore all of those other options, but to really pick out the best in each one, and then find a way to combine them and move forward and get a whole new set of answers, strategies, tactics, whatever that may be. So the thing with AI is, there's a million different roads we could go on this. There are whole podcasts on AI. There's companies dedicated to AI now. It's a big space, and we can't dissect all of this in 20 minutes. But my point here is, and I want to start with a story. So we have a client in the inner circle. I won't name names, but she was approached by an AI company to implement AI in her business to generate social media posts and to help grow her business with the idea of recruiting employees. So we're on one of our one-on-one coaching calls, and she's telling me this whole thing, and it's this cool program, and it's all this money, and she did it. She said yes and invested in it. And I started with questions because, hey, look over my shoulder, right? If you're watching, question marks, that's what we do here. We ask questions. That's how you get the answers. But I started with questions, and I said, okay, what's the end goal? Like, what's the strategy behind implementing AI in this area of your business when you're not currently doing anything with social media? And she was like, I don't really know, but it's to get employees, right? And I said, okay, but like, what's the path to get there? How are you going to use the tool to get there versus how you're doing it now? And there was absolutely no path. And that's where we kind of uncovered through a few more difficult questions that we might be throwing tools at problems that haven't been identified. And that is the space where most people find themselves in with AI, with the internet, with e-commerce, with telephones, all of these things. This is a common pattern, right? It's happened year over year over year. And we find ourselves in the same place. So what I'm really getting at with the title of this episode is, no, you're not going to make $1 million overnight with AI without a strategy and without it being consistent and in line with your business. And no, AI is not going to put your business out of business. It's the middle, but how are we asking the right questions and identifying the right business strategy so that we know precisely which AI tools to use, or at least to look for, to help us? So back to the complex questions, how can I 2x my output and 50% have a 50% reduction in my input in any given task? So I said a lot there, but can we unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, and so I love this whole thing about we're throwing problems at it's like I said to somebody, you know that story. I shouldn't go there, but it's like you're the answer to a question no one asked, right? And so you're you're it's really cool and seems magic. And when you get it, you say, wow, this could be a part of everything. So I got to get it. And that's just like people that take like, it's kind of like Notion. Let's give a shout out for Notion. All
We
right.
love your Notion.
Talk about it first, get the sponsorship later. Notion is overwhelming to so many people because they go, it could be everything. It could. It even happened to us when I was first, it was that honeymoon phase with Notion. I'm like, oh my God, my mind is going, it's in 100 different directions. You could actually, the product could be in here, it could be housed in here, built in here, done in here. It's super meta and meta on top of meta, right? And it's so overwhelming for so many people. And I got nothing out of it for my first 6 months except ideas and the wasting of time that felt like I was being productive because I'm really getting into this. And it could be so many things, as opposed to waiting for what really needed to happen, which happened, which had actual needs then. Now, yes, I knew Notion backwards and forwards because of that first experience, but it's just luck that it ended up, then we got to the place, then we said, now is the place and time, and it has fit in perfectly and been the answer to the specific question we had. But AI poses that same allure, which is it can do so much. It's breathtaking how much it can do. And then it's overwhelming. And then you have somebody like our dear client who was about to say, yeah, let me totally lean in on the most advanced version of this massive thing, knowing that I'm going to punch at it enough time and maybe hit a problem with it. And that's hugely risky, very. So, but see what we would rather do, and what you did with your first questions was, well, what's the strategy? You went right back to navigation. What's the strategy? Is this in service of our avatar? Are we trying to create better value streams to them? Better bits of that. What are those things? Because if it's not there, right, then you're spending a lot of time, which we already got you to the place where you're allocating your most precious resource of time to a certain number of projects for this quarter. And you're now leaning all in on AI. Which of those projects is that a vehicle for? In service of? Oh, none of them. Stop. But it's going to be the greatest thing. I got to get out of it. For what? That you're not already doing with the projects that you picked. And if this is more important, solving this riddle for some problem we haven't manifested, then stop with those projects and do this project instead. Because you just told me, my God, I can't wait another minute. So then let's stop everything. Even more reason to stop everything to figure this out. Because maybe we're digging in the wrong place with everything we're doing. Because there is that where you could be halfway through a quarter and something happens and you say, I now must do this. And it is okay then to shut down those projects. I've known people, very good, strong project managers, who are still trying to get that dog to jump over that fence. And they're working so hard on the training that they didn't realize that the neighbor took the fence down. And I go to the project manager and say, what are we still doing here with this whole dog over the fence project? We're still on this? I'm so focused on this dog. He's almost there. He just needs about 2 more inches. For what? To get over the fence. Look around. The fence is gone. They put in a gate. Like, what are we doing? Well, I've never failed to deliver on a project. And you didn't fail on this project either. We just didn't need it anymore. The failure would be to run through this thing so you can put a stake in the ground and say, dog can clear 5 feet now. Good for the dog. But now I got to go buy a fence for it to jump over just so it doesn't feel bad. That's a whole separate problem you created. So if we are, so that is, but you logically went through those steps and said, we're going to clear all the hurdles that we got in order to get you here, which is now executing. And in that execution, someone said AI, and you ran at it because it's shiny and cool and new. And you can look into it. And when you have a problem that it solves for, we'll solve that. But not until, because now you've just got one more thing eating up your time, energy, resources, money. And you're going to be frustrated and say, gosh, I didn't get as much done this quarter as I had hoped. And I had so many hopes too, especially when I kicked off that AI project right in the middle of everything else I was doing to solve for a thing that I didn't know I had.
Yeah, and we talked about this a few weeks ago on the project management episode about having project managers, and the example was in MetLife, so really big company, having project managers that just had too much going on. But when you translate that to small businesses, as the business owner, the entrepreneur, that's basically what we're doing. We're saying everything's a project, which is also incorrect. We're not saying that, but we're saying everything's a project. It has to happen now. And that's why so many projects do go unfinished and you don't actually see the results. So for us, like what Sean's saying about is the way we look at project management is in quarterly sprints. So 12 weeks at a time. If you're saying something has to change now, the dog over the fence, fantastic example. Another good real world example would be COVID. You know, if the economy in the world shuts down in the middle of a quarter, there's some things that need to change, and that's okay. But in most scenarios, 99.9% of the time, there's nothing that big happening in a 12-week period to where you need to say, it's AI, it's now or never, and I'm going to die. You can say, I will put this on my calendar for Q2, Q3, whatever, but it's not a right now thing. And you've discussed that as part of the 4 Ds, which we're not going to get into. Go back and listen to that episode. But there's so much panic and hype too around AI that is really causing a lot of people to waste a lot of money, waste tremendous amount of time, and not really get what they're after because this sounds so boring because they don't have a strategy around what they're going for. I sound like a broken record here, Sean.
Oh my gosh, why does it always come back to that? Because it always comes back to that. Because it always does. And the companies that realize that, I know people that are doing beautiful things with AI. We both do. But it was because they knew exactly who they were serving, what their value chains were, what the supporting processes were. They saw an exact thing that they're saying, you know, I spend this many hours on this thing. If I just do this one thing, I'm pretty sure I can handle it. I hired that one expert to just do that one thing. I will save 20% off my production time. And that is real money. And here's what it is. And I have the time to do it because I haven't picked all of my projects for the quarter. And I'm going to put me and this other person on it. And we know how much time it's going to take and when our due date is and what it's going to look like. And they go and they run. And now they're using it. And they're like, this is the answer. And then people see that and they go, see, I knew I should have done my AA project. This all for what? I don't know all the things that are going wrong. Oh, no, the last thing you need is one more big giant thing that is going to seem overwhelming because you haven't yet figured out how to apply it. I bought a saw. Let's stay with the saws. Let's try to democratize this. So I'll give you the example and we'll extrapolate it from there. I bought a saw. It was pretty complex. and all kinds of ways to adjust it and all kinds of things. I couldn't figure out how to use this thing to save my life until I had to do one project with it and had to use it. And then I learned how to use it because I had context for I was trying to solve the problem. How do I cut that at that angle so I can make a French cleat wall? Oh, that's right. So let me figure it out. And then I had to figure out, and now I know how to use it for any project. But it made no sense to me as a tool until I was actually using it to solve a very specific problem. And then I try to put together, you cannot conceptualize that IKEA furniture instruction manual. Same thing with my kids with the Legos. I look at these things and go, you've got to be kidding me. I don't have time to go back and get an engineering degree. But once I see the box and I know, oh, we're making a car for your little such and such visual. Yeah, now I get it. Give me the wheels. I got it. At least now the instructions on the manual, the thing that I have makes more sense because it's trying to solve for a specific thing. So any complex tool, of course, those people then who said, for this one specific thing, can I apply it here and do this? Yes, great. And in the microcosm, I'll learn the macrocosm. And I'll probably see now other ways that it can be plugged into my business. But that's because I'm now taking it to solve a specific problem. But if you just pull it in and say, solve everything, you may solve for nothing and just overwhelm yourself and then go, I tried to get my head around that whole AI thing. It didn't work. So I'm just going to go back to clickety-clacking on what I do or pay somebody gobs of money to do something that wasn't as hard as I made it out to be.
Yeah, that's what most people, that's what happens to most people. And it's unfortunate, but that's where the wasted money and time comes. So to just clarify and put a bow on this episode, we are not anti-AI. As a matter of fact, I use it every day. At this podcast and my other podcast, our other one, Harmonious at Lunch, would truly not be possible without AI. So we love it, but we knew specifically what tools to look for because we identified the problem we were looking to solve. I'll give you, this is the real life example, and then we're going to wrap this thing up and get to the inner circle. First things first, I'm putting it on the screen. Go to @AskWhatIf on YouTube. Subscribe to us. We want to have you back on another episode. Go check out on the Harmonious at Lunch podcast, episode 12 with Vanessa Jenks and episode 30 something with Peter was his name. Both of those are on AI, and they dive specifically into how to leverage it and what to be cautioned against when using AI. And they are both experts in the field. So I encourage you to go watch those episodes if you want to see both the pros and the cons outside of what we're talking about. But for us, I said, okay, I want to produce a daily podcast, which is kind of bonkers in and of itself. And I want to do it interviewing guests every single day. I don't want to hear myself talking for 20 minutes a day, every single day. I'm not into that, but I want to have strangers I don't know. And I want to streamline this whole process. So I knew exactly what parts of the process I needed to have streamlined and leverage AI. And as I was able to find tools to do exactly that, from the automations of onboarding people to the editing, chopping up of the show, making promo material, downloading transcripts, and then also using tools like ChatGPT and Bard to make YouTube descriptions and summarize the episode based on what was actually said in the transcript. These are not generic descriptions. They are word for word what was said in the show, and we can leverage AI to do those things. So I said, these are the 4 areas that I need the most help with to 2x, 5x my output really, and decrease my input of time by 3 to 4x, if not more. And here's the best part. I don't have any outside help on any of these podcasts. I'm not bragging about that because they may be terrible. I don't know. You tell me. Put it in the comments. Is this awful? Is this a terrible show? But
not getting my help.
No, definitely not getting Sean's help. But what we're able to do is in about 35 minutes per episode, I can fully produce a podcast, which I don't know that has ever been possible prior to the release of AI 1 to 2 years ago. So we're not against it. But what we're saying is if for us, ubiquity is a focus, which it is, I'm going to use AI in that area to leverage and reduce my inputs to increase my outputs exponentially. And we did exactly that. So that's really the message.
Like any good project, We have a shop. We got a bunch of tools lying around here. We create more of them as we go. Oh, this would be a cool way to help people through strategizing XYZ. Another tool. So we have tools all over the place. Once we created, once we didn't. Any project, then we pull the ones in that we need to apply to it. That's how you do it everywhere else. That's how you should be thinking about it in your business.
Yep. And all of our tools are hanging up in our garage called Notion, which we love. On that note, Sean, we got to run. We got to go to the inner circle. We have no idea what we're going to talk about next week on the show. And that's the beauty of this show. So make sure, go to Ask What If on YouTube, subscribe, same time, same place, wherever you are next week. We'll be live. If you're catching the recording and you're listening to us, make sure you go subscribe, leave a comment, and tell us how bad the show is. That's
Do all
okay.
that
We're going to get better.
Do all that stuff.
Do all of it. All right. We'll see you next time.